How do I know when my spouse has forgiven me? Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast.
I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler.
We're brothers,
We're therapists.
and we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Hey, Tyler, you ready to have some hard conversations?
Let's do it.
Let the Therapy Brothers podcast begin. Hey, Tyler.
How's it going, Brannon?
It's good. I was just telling you, I went to bed at 8:30 last night.
I know.
8:30, man.
You went to bed at 8:30.
Oh, it's the best.
You get sleep for like almost 12 hours.
Oh, wow. Yeah, almost, actually. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I recommend it to anybody.
It's also because you're probably pretty exhausted. So
You're exhausted when like I'm in bed at 8:30 and my son, my 8-year-old is not not going to bed. And as I'm like yelling at him, like, just go to sleep, I'm falling asleep.
You're that tapped out and exhausted.
Yeah. How have you been?
Same. I actually went to bed at almost 9 o'clock last night and slept till 7:30 this morning, which I didn't do any of my dailies like I normally do. And I think I just chose when I went to bed last night. We had such a long weekend together in terms of just the emotion and just, I think everyone was exhausted. So I just made the choice, hey, let's sleep this morning. We'll get up, get ready with a new day and get going again. But it was as exhausting as it was. It was a real treat of a weekend for both Brannon and I. We spent some time traveling to Texas to go to the funeral of one of our cousins who we love, and got to see pretty much everyone we love. Our whole family there showed up to support, and overwhelmed with feelings of sadness and loss and confusion, but also overwhelmed with feelings of just love, connection.
It was a heavy, hard weekend, and I just want to, just say to my Texas family how much I love them and appreciate them. So
we love you.
Yeah. So we're exhausted for a lot of reasons, traveling, emotional reasons, and
can only imagine how our Texas family is feeling because they're the ones taking the full brunt of it.
Yeah. So, all right. With that, Danny, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
If you could give us a little bit of what's going on with you, and we'll go from there.
All right. Yeah, I'm like a lot of people. I started looking at things, pornography and stuff when I was younger, but it started out when I was about 13. That's when I got into masturbation and did that. Was ashamed of it and kept it hidden from others. And then it wasn't until about 15 or so that some friends introduced me to the pornography. It was back then just a magazine that we looked at, and I looked at it. I was curious, like most guys are, and I felt very awkward afterwards, and didn't want to hang out with those friends again because I just felt bad about what I did. But the shame got to me, and I kept it hidden. I went several years without having looked at anything because I'd felt bad. And then when the internet came around, I was looking at stuff on there. But back then it wasn't as easy to find things. And of course, with dial-up internet, it wasn't very fast. When the site would say, "Are you over 18?" I would say no, because I was only 17 at the time. And I felt guilty lying about it. It's about my age. So I had enough, enough morals to not want to lie about it. But that didn't keep me from still searching, curiosity, like you say. And then I ended up serving an LDS mission. When I was talking to the stake president right before going, he said, "Is there anything that you've done in the past that would keep you from going. I just felt the real guilt trip, and I thought, I said no because, like you say, I was too embarrassed to say. And then he said to me afterwards, a lot of guys have had problems that they need to take care of. And at the moment I thought, oh, he knows that I have what I've done. But if he would have asked the question again, I would have told him everything. But yeah, he didn't ask and just moved on. So I ended up going on the mission. We didn't have any access to the stuff, so I didn't have any problems there. But yeah, after I got back, didn't take long until I got back into the bad habit. I met my wife at school, and we talked, we got to know each other. And then as we were getting closer towards marriage, I was having the problem at the time with the pornography and the masturbation, like I had been for like 10 years at this moment. And when we were talking about getting more serious, I said to her, oh, there's something I should let you know, but this is where I should have said, I have a problem with this, but it was just a medical thing. I says, oh, I have seizures, and I don't know if that's something that would bother you. And she says, oh, actually, I have something to tell you as well. I've been married in the past and divorced. And we both thought that this was something that would keep the other one from wanting to marry us. And we were like, well, nope, that's not a problem. So I proposed that week, and we ended up getting married about 8 months later. And then during the marriage, I was working nights. I started, after I got home, she would be asleep already when I get home at 3 a.m. And then didn't take long to get back into that bad habit of looking. And I went for 12 years of marriage before I decided it was time for me to come forth and just tell her about it. I had set a meeting with my bishop and talked with him, told him all about it. And afterwards, at the end of the meeting, he said to me, now there's something that you need to do. And I had a feeling what it was going to be. And he said, you need to go home and tell your wife all about it. And I thought, oh, like, how's this going to go? I was afraid if she knew of the things that I had done, the images I'd looked at in the videos, I thought for sure that she was going to be mad and that she was going to leave me. At the time, we had our twins. They were 4 years old, and we just had barely had. She was pregnant with our daughter, and actually, I think no, we had just had our baby girl, and this is when I had decided, oh, I need to clean up my life, be a good father, and be there for my kids. And after I gave her the full explanation of what I had done and the process I'd gone through, then she said to me, why did it take you so long to tell me about this? I could have helped you along the way. And I thought, and she had one question and said, is any of this my fault, like for something that I did? And I said, no, I had this problem long before I met you. And it was just hard to get rid of. And then she said to me that, oh, I forgive you. It's something that right away she had said that. And I thought, oh, wow, that was easy. I was able to go 5 years after that without any problems again, and then ended up falling back into the bad habit. And at this time, I was scared, like you say, of, oh, what's she going to think of me now? I ended up going probably for about 6 months. And then I found your podcast. It popped up on the internet. And I thought, I wonder. I listened to it. And at the end of the podcast, you said, if any of you, if you have something that you need to take care of, I would encourage you before you change your mind to look into it and to do that. And I thought, I need to tell her about this. And that's when I did tell her. And then instead of the first time when she says, "Oh, that's oh, I forgive you. That's something that we don't need to worry about," she said, "I don't know if there's anything I can do for you. You need to figure this out on your own." And that's when I was thinking, oh, the first time was easy and I was able to go a long time, but I had gotten back into the bad habit, then she kind of made it sound like, oh, this is up to you. Like, you need to take care of this, and hasn't really supported me. And I've kept it from her when I've slipped. And I saw, oh, she doesn't want to have anything to do with this. And I thought, well, she had said she forgave me the first time, but I don't know now if she has. I think it's hard to know if she's really forgiven me, or if she just thinks, oh, that's something I don't want to think about, and ignores it. And that's basically the story.
So just really quickly, this second time around, you've been working. So you came clean about 5 years ago,
Right.
and then you stayed sober for 5 years. Maybe didn't necessarily know what recovery was per se, but you were sober for 5 years, and you slipped back into it for a period of time, and then your conscience got the best of you. When did that happen? Like, when did you tell her again or disclose to her again this most recent time?
I guess it was actually 7 years ago. It was while she was pregnant with our youngest daughter. I was thinking, oh, I need to take care of this, to be a good father. So that's when I was feeling the guilt, is when I had responsibility. And while she was pregnant, I was thinking, oh, I need to take care of this. I need to talk to my bishop and get this resolved. But then, oh, what's he going to think of me? Am I going to be removed from the church? That was my biggest worry. And then, oh, I won't be able to be a good father if that's the case. So I went several months, keep thinking, oh, I need to take care of this, but I just kept putting it off, procrastinating like most people do. So yeah, 7 years ago is when I came forth. And then, yeah, this past 2 years is when I've been struggling off and on and wanting to get rid of it altogether.
What, Danny, why do you question whether she's forgiven you this time or not? Like, why is that a question in your mind?
It's just hard to know, because with several things, then she just ignores it. Like, we haven't had a bad relationship. Like I say, we, like most people, have disagreements, and things, but it's just hard to know if she, like, I feel like that she'd probably forgiven me. The hardest thing for me was to forgive myself. I'd gone over 20 years of having this bad habit, of having this problem, listening to a bunch of podcasts, hearing other people's stories. And I think that all things are good, but I'm not sure. I just was curious, like, yeah, how do I know? That's the real question.
There's a difference between trust and forgiveness. And so for her to forgive you is one thing, for her to trust you is another. And from your standpoint, if you're gauging, has she forgiven me or not? I guess, what are you looking for from her? And it's interesting what you just said. I'm having a harder time forgiving myself than,
Right.
And so I wonder if she had forgiven you, if you would even allow that fully in, and accept that forgiveness from her if you haven't forgiven yourself.
Yeah. Each time after I had talked the first time, when I was slipping up, and I was just telling her, oh, coming up with other things that I had said, then she had said, oh, this is something of the past. You don't need to keep bringing it up. But yeah, I'm like,
so
well,
you keep going and saying, I'm bringing it up. It's almost like, hey, she's like, I've moved on, but you're like, well, I just keep going there because you haven't let go.
Right. Yeah. I was slipping and thought, oh, I need to tell her. I didn't say, oh, I messed up again. I did it again. I just felt guilty and says, oh, I'm sorry that sorry that I did this. I didn't say, oh, I did it recently. She just thought I was talking about the past, like the 5 years before type of thing. And I
Oh,
didn't want to tell her, like I say, I didn't tell her, oh, this was for the about 6 months that I was messing up. And I kept thinking, oh, how do I tell her that I got back into this bad habit?
So what I'm hearing you say is that you're manipulating her.
Right. That's what I was doing at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
I was
So
telling her, oh, yeah.
you were telling yourself you were getting honest, but you knew you weren't getting honest.
Yeah.
That's kind of what
I
I'm
didn't.
hearing you say.
Right. That's basically.
Yeah. It's hard to accept forgiveness both for yourself and from her when that's the way of disclosure. Or can you see how that undermines that for full forgiveness to even have a chance?
Yep.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing too if I hear it right, you were going to her to disclose something, but it was the something from the past you'd already talked about in order to ease your conscience about the current thing, hoping that
No, Tyler. What I heard, tell me if I'm wrong. What I heard was he was going to her and disclosing what had happened in the present, but not giving a timeline and helping her assume that this was something from the past, but it was
I see.
actually happening in the present.
I see. So it was the way of clearing the conscience without the accountability all the way.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Dude, I can appreciate that you're saying that out loud because I know a lot of people who have played the same kinds of denial games in their heads. But then where Brandon's going is spot on. Then it's like, of course, you're not going to be able to know or feel if there's been real forgiveness because it's all based off of something that's not reality.
Right.
Right.
You know what's interesting, Danny, is the thing that eats at the soul the worst is probably not the sexual acting out.
For most people.
Yeah. Like what is it? The thing that torments the soul. What is it more than just the sexual acting out?
The guilt of doing it.
But what the guilt there's guilt around something beyond the sexual acting out. Tyler knows where I'm going with this, I think.
I think so.
It's living a lie. It's the
Right.
secrecy. It's the manipulation. It's so like when we're hyper focused on the sexual acting out as the thing that's so bad, so you're using all these tactics and techniques to kind of justify or minimize or manipulate or whatever. The usage of those tactics and techniques are the things that are telling you, your soul, that I'm not in alignment. I'm not free. And so, yes, I want her to love me. I want her to love me, but I don't think she fully will. So I'm going to manipulate her just enough so that she does. And that's what tells you that no one will love me as I really am. And now I'm living in this place where no one will love me as I really am. So I'm orchestrating the things around me in order for people to love me at the cost of me, my soul, right?
Right.
Do you see that, Danny? Has that been your experience?
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. I keep thinking, oh, I don't want this to go bad, but I don't want others to know. Yeah, I think I was more worried about what other people would think than I know that. Like say, I'm a religious guy. I know that our Heavenly Father is always watching. He's always there, looking after us. And while I was in this had this problem for so many years, I was more worried about what other people would think and not of him who's always watching, what he was thinking. And that's partly what helped me realize, oh, I need to take care of this and I need to overcome it, is realizing, oh, there's someone. I always would, when I would be looking at stuff, I'd look around and make sure nobody was in the area, nobody was watching. Like I said, my wife was asleep, and I would not want her to come in, walk on me. But yeah, what helped me realize that I needed to take care of this was knowing that someone was always watching, even if we can't feel his presence or we can't see him.
It's such an interesting thing that you guys are bringing up right now, because it's both, right? Like the behavior itself is at least embarrassing enough that we don't want people to see it, right?
Right.
And yet we feel like there's a bunch of shame over it too, because of all the weight we attach to that acting out part of it. It's against our values. It's just that the other. But what I think where you're going, Brannon, is, yeah, that's an issue that needs to maybe be addressed. And it could actually be addressed if it was just an embarrassing thing that happens. It's a habit that I'm going to work on. But it's when I attach the story that somehow that makes me not good enough, that's where I actually then have to go a second step. And this is where maybe the more significant damage is actually done for most people. I have to betray my own values in order to perform in such a way that people would accept me. And so the hyper focus is on the bad behavior of like the sexual acting out. The way of protecting my ego is to actually engage in behaviors that erode my sense of self. They erode my values. They erode. So my way of covering up is actually maybe more damaging than the behavior itself that gets all the focus.
Yeah. In fact, I think there's something kind of twisted here. The pathway to recovery here is not about knowing that God's always watching me, and so I'm going to be a good boy because I know He's watching me. It's not about being good enough for your wife. It's something different. It's knowing that God's always loving you no matter what.
Right.
It's pretty incredible that your wife, her response, pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me sooner? I could have helped you sooner. She's saying, I love you, Danny. Like I'm here for you. And her response is similar to what I believe how God would respond. Hey, why didn't you come to me sooner? I'm here. And then knowing that when you go mess up again, because you will make mistakes again in your life, what those mistakes are, we don't know exactly, that again, you can go open yourself up completely, own it, be accountable, and receive love again. And what happens when you know that, the pull to sex addiction decreases, because you don't need validation and okayness and feelings of relief anymore, because you're not living in that state of hyper arousal with around the shame and just the guilt and all those things. And you don't need validation from something else because you know God loves you. So do you see the difference between what I'm saying and what I'm hearing, kind of your operating system in your mind, Danny? Can you see the difference?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
What are you taking from what Brannon's saying right now, Danny?
That, I don't know, like say I need to accept how things are going, knowing that I'm going to mess up. As he was mentioning, that when my wife said, "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" I don't know if I said this, but my reply to her was, because I was afraid you were going to leave me. And then she said, "I wouldn't leave you over something like this. We've been together too long. We've gotten real close, and I love you too much to let something like this make me leave." I was fortunate enough to not give in to the temptation of, I didn't do any chats with anyone. I didn't meet with anyone or have an affair, anything like that. I was able to keep it just to the viewing and the acting out and not have anyone else involved. So that was definitely something that I'm sure kept us together. Is, oh, it was only that. Oh, that's not as bad as it could have been.
Right. And yet, even though that was her response, there's something inside of you that says, uh-oh, like it happened again. I still need to manipulate. I still am worried that I'm not lovable. And there's something underneath this. There's some trauma underneath this that's saying to you, I'm not loved as I am. I'm scared that if I get naked or that I throw it all out on the table or whatever it is, I'm gonna be rejected. I'm gonna be abandoned. I'm not gonna be accepted. And to go all in on that, to show up as an authentic Danny in your marriage, it sounds like you're really scared of that,
Right.
right?
Which is understandable, Brannon, when you've carried something, a belief that's almost been hardwired into you that you're bad if you do something, and then you're bad if you lie, and now you're doing both of those things. It flies in the face of like of the hard wiring that we've built over years of lying to ourselves to say, hey, the best way out of this is to allow yourself to be lovable no matter what, and to be completely honest. Right. Right. The minute I go start to do that, my body is almost gonna like rebel
The
against me and say,
opposite thing.
don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Like that's risky. That's too. And what you're saying, Brown, is there might be some things back in Danny's past that would also reinforce that hard wiring of, hey, I remember times when I was exposed or vulnerable or people saw certain parts of me and I did get rejected, or I was told that I wasn't good enough or something else. And there's that wiring that's there that has to be continually looked at and challenged and worked on in order to actually have the success. Because what Brandon said is really important. I want to phrase this slightly differently for you, Danny, for all of our listeners, is that there is a direct correlation between your feeling of lovableness and your need to act out. And the more that you learn to lean into a relationship with a higher power, something bigger than yourself, an understanding of self that says, I know that I'm lovable even in my worst places, the more that that belief becomes true, the less the need to act out. It'll start to take care of itself if the belief system can change.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been able this last few months without having any problems acting out or even having the desire to look. It's because, like you said, realize the love of our Heavenly Father, the love He has for us. And the more I realize that love, the easier it is to avoid the problems.
Can I give a kind of a hypothetical here? Because this will kind of illustrate a little bit what we're talking about. It might be a little different than what you think. So let's say, Danny, I'm just making up a scenario, but let's say you were really triggered. You were home alone and you had just a huge urge to look at porn and to masturbate. Okay. Let's say you didn't though. For this scenario. Okay. Your wife comes home an hour later and just out of the blue, she says, hey, did you feel like masturbating and looking at porn today? What would you say? You didn't.
Yeah, she never did ask me that. And she never did discover it. Like a lot of people, their wives discover it, and that's when they get in trouble. But yeah, since she never has asked me that, even after I was in the recovery, then yeah, I'm not sure what I would say. I probably would she would be able to tell with my facial expression that, yeah, I did. So I think that I wouldn't be able to hide it.
Look at that though. She'd be able to tell with my facial expression. So when we talk about honesty and authenticity, if we were to remove the shame and the guilt from that urge and that craving, and you were able to just be like you're just Danny, then, and I know she doesn't come home and ask you that question. I know this scenario is not really realistic, but if you're able to just be, then you're able to be like, man, babe, I had a huge trigger today. It was huge. I wanted to masturbate.
Strong urges today.
Yep. I dealt with it. I actually called a sponsor or a support person. I told them that I was having that urge because I was just open with it. I was honest about it. And when I told them, it just kind of went away. But man, I definitely wanted to masturbate today. I'm talking about this so nonchalantly,
Right.
Yeah.
intentionally. I'm talking about it that way because that's the freedom that I'm talking about. Is I own me. I own my reality. I know me. I have nothing to manipulate, nothing to hide. I don't show up resonating in weakness with those closest to me, especially my spouse. I show up resonating in strength and confidence in understanding who I am as a sexual, spiritual, emotional human being. Um, and so, what we got to look at, Danny, for you is it's interesting what you said. She would read my face and know that something was going on. That's unconscious inside of you. That happens. Those responses. So we got to look at this real strong belief and this trauma that you've had that say you're not okay as you are. That you need to earn it. You need to be good enough. You need to be sober enough. You need to do those things in order to be a good enough man.
Enough.
Right. Right. And I really do wonder about your relationship with your mom, your relationship with your dad. You know what that was like, and what messages you got from that.
My dad
Yeah.
was a long haul truck driver, so pretty much all my growing up years, he was gone a lot more than he was home. Gone for weeks at a time, home for a day or two, and then gone. And we didn't have a set schedule to know when he was going to be home. So yeah,
Wow.
I've also heard a lot of times that your father figure, that you think of God as you think of your father, and he just was hardly ever there. So yeah, I see where you're
Just
going with
distant.
that with the
Yeah.
parent. Yeah, my
Yeah.
mom was always there, went to, I was on the track team and stuff like that. She always went to the meets and everything like that. She supported me, but my father was never there.
Yeah. And how many siblings did you have?
I have six siblings. So
And
yeah, I'm the fifth.
what number are you?
Yeah, my twin sister and I are in the middle. Um, she's number four and I'm number five.
Wow. Your mom sounds incredible,
It's a
but
big family.
seven kids, seven kids and a husband who's gone most of the time. Like,
Right,
yeah. She sounds incredible. Like she really stepped up for you. Um, but at the same time, she probably only had so much to give and was pretty overwhelmed, I could imagine.
right. Yeah, I kept this hidden from them. It was actually only a few weeks ago that I've told them for my first time.
A few
I
weeks
got,
ago.
yeah.
Jeez.
So I was going through all of this without I'm I didn't want to say anything to them because I like with my wife, I was like, oh, what are they going to think of me? But yeah, it was just a few weeks ago I was able to come forth and tell them about all of my things. And just like with my wife, then they supported me and they said, yeah, you'd be surprised how many people have had this problem and kept it hidden. And they didn't say that my dad didn't say that he had this, but I suspected that. I know that my brothers, I know for sure one of them because it was on his computer that I had looked at the history and saw that he had been looking at stuff. And that's part of when I was younger and started acting out looking at it was because my brother had done it. I never did tell him that I saw the stuff or even now I haven't told him about my recovery. But yeah, a lot of people will know about it when this gets put out there.
Hmm.
It'll be in a couple more weeks. It's actually kind of cool though, Danny, to see that you're in a spot in your life where you're taking those kinds of steps. You can kind of hear it. I finally talked to my parents. I'm finally coming on this show. I'm finally reaching out. Like you're starting to actually believe in the principles here that being honest and open with yourself and your life is going to be the pathway forward rather than living this closed off, keeping secrets, self-protective, image management kind of a life. And I believe that you're going to start to see more success as you lean further and further into these principles that Brannon's been speaking about a lot to you today.
Yeah.
Tyler,
Yeah.
Danny, I got a quick question for you guys. Have you
Okay.
guys ever worn a Speedo?
No,
You've
Yeah.
never worn a Speedo, Danny?
no, I never worn a Speedo. Done swimming suit without a top, but Speedo's not something I've ever even thought about wearing.
Have you ever worn one, Tyler?
I've worn a Speedo on multiple occasions, Brannon.
I think I've been around you in a Speedo.
I have to admit that when I've worn a Speedo, it's usually been in order to get a reaction from someone like you.
Yeah. Well, what's it like to wear a Speedo? You out in public. How does that feel, Tyler?
It depends on the setting, but pretty vulnerable.
Right. And so like the first moments of it, how it feels different probably than like 20 minutes later would be my guess, right? Like, what do you think?
Well, have you worn a Speedo, Brannon?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, then you know.
um,
Yeah.
okay, here's my point. Yeah, it's pretty vulnerable. Okay. Like people can see pretty much everything. And what you realize is at first it's like, oh, I'm so worried what they think about me. And then when you realize like, you know what? It doesn't really matter what they think about me. I'm good. Like I'm having a good time. Um, and so I'm okay. And the power of the shame around am I gonna be seen goes away. And you can sink into I am who I am. They've seen it all now. What do I have to hide? I am who I am. Um, and then you're able to be actually loved and connected to because you are you. When you have layers and layers and layers over you, nobody can get to you, right? I don't know if this analogy is really working, but um, when you're covered up completely, and you think that's the way that you're gonna get accepted, you're actually doing the very opposite thing from allowing love and acceptance. Danny, you have an opportunity to have such deeper intimacy with your wife. You have an opportunity to have such a better relationship with her. She sounds like an incredible partner and woman, and who's available to love you on a deeper level if you'll allow it. Um, you just got to wear a Speedo in front of her more often.
Oh, Brandon, so let's take the image of you or I or Danny wearing a Speedo out of the equation for a second. Okay. And I gotta take a quick side note, just tell this story really quickly.
Oh no,
You know where I'm going, Brandon?
no, I don't.
Brannon was in graduate school in long time ago in Hawaii, and Rhiannon and my wife Rhiannon and I went out to visit him, and we we ended up on this beach, and we didn't necessarily have like our swimming trunks, so all we had is our underwear, like our boxer briefs. And so Brannon and I both just stripped down to our boxer briefs and walked around on the beach. And because we were feeling kind of embarrassed about that, even though nobody was paying attention because it looked just like a normal swimsuit, we acted like we were from Europe. So we were speaking like this broken, like German, because we'd had like a few years of German in high school. So we were walking around on the beach talking like we were German, and I think we laughed a lot that night.
But Tyler, even look at that story. Look what we did. Look what
Yeah,
we did in our vulnerability. We acted fake.
we had to perform because we wanted to be able to go out on the beach, and all we had was our undergarments because we hadn't brought our swimming trunks with us that day because we had gone to dinner or something, right?
You look very European, by the way, like very
Well,
European.
hey, family tree has us all going back a tiny bit to Greece and the whole rest of it to Great Britain. So I don't know about that. Anyway, like I've totally derailed us. Let's get back on track here. Take the image of all Speedos, whatever, off the table. The principle that you're getting at here, Brandon, is actually a good one. And I've been having this roll through my brain as we've been talking to you, Danny.
Please bring it home. Please.
I'm going to try really hard. All imagery aside, it seems that when we work with people, they at first come in to our office with some kind of a belief of, I can't even show that I have a problem. And then the belief starts to change to, I have to be a work in progress. I have to accept that I'm a work in progress. And the people that thrive end up becoming the ones who say, I get to be a work in progress. It is designed this way. I embrace being a work in progress. And when they actually can allow themselves to be seen, to be human, to make mistakes, to learn from those mistakes, to be open about those mistakes, those are the ones that inoculate themselves from all of the stuff that keeps them stuck in the addiction in the first place, the shame, the hiding, the performance, the masks. All of that stuff goes away. And what's left is this beautiful journey of growth, work in progress. Is that close, Brannon?
Yeah. Yeah. Danny, is it making sense to you?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's about stripping away the masks. It's about loving yourself right where you're at today. It's not about trying to get to a certain place so then you're lovable enough today. Trying to be sober enough, trying to be a good enough father, husband, church member, and then okay, now I'll be accepted and loved. Um, it's about letting it like surrender, and letting go and letting God in. And with some of your trauma with your dad and probably believing God is somewhat distant, and it might be hard to do that. Um, and that's where the real work is, I think, for you, Danny. It's not about figuring out whether she's forgiven you or or how to get sober enough in order to be good enough of a man for her. That's not the work to do. Right.
Right.
Part of the answer to your original question about has my wife forgiven me will come with the authenticity that allows you to see that her response is her response in reality. And the other part of that will be that as you come to fully accept yourself, your ability to receive your own forgiveness will be the way that you're able to measure the thing. It won't matter quite so much because you're going to know who you are, the path that you're on. You'll feel confident in the growth that you're making, and it'll be easier to accept whatever it is that she offers you.
Danny, I want to ask you, um, is there anything you need to do to be forgiven by God?
Um, I think that no, I believe that he's forgiven me. Yeah,
Okay.
I've come forth, taken care of this, and I do feel like I say that I've been forgiven of this.
You feel like the atonement is available to you?
Yes.
Yeah. Um, it's interesting to me the nature of the atonement, which is infinite and eternal no matter what. Nowhere did Christ say, well, in order for you to actually partake of this, like you better do just A, B, and C first, for you to actually, like you got to go atone yourself first for a while, and then I'll allow you. That's not how it works. And so you're forgiven always. You're forgiven right now. You're forgiven every second. And and there's nothing to do right now in order to have to earn that forgiveness. That's easy for me to say, but for your heart and your soul to internalize that and understand what I just said is important, because that lays the groundwork for you to then show up more authentically in your life, know yourself better, create better things in your life. So, Danny, I really appreciate you coming on today, and sharing
Yeah,
your story with us.
and
Do you have
definitely.
any you have any other thoughts, Danny? I know we're getting close on time. Any other thoughts or insights or anything that we've left open today that we need to close?
No, I think that we've had a good discussion, and yeah, I feel confident about knowing that that I need to not regret, not have any doubts about it. Yeah, I feel that you've done good talking with me and answering my question.
Danny,
Yeah.
I think Target sells Speedos, so just so you know.
Let's totally forget the Speedo portion and let's I'll just say this, Danny, that both Brannon and I appreciate you coming on the show and that we do see you. And the fact that you're here talking about it is already a sign that you're moving in the right direction. I would just reiterate what Brannon said about this idea of forgiveness, that forgiveness is a weird dialectic because it does often come with actions that we take, but the forgiveness is always there to be laid claim on. It's as much about the acceptance of the forgiveness as it is about the doing. And it's always there. And the more that you learn to live a life where you can be self-forgiving and self-compassionate and acceptance of the gift that's already there, the more that your desires will turn to doing those things that align with your values. And you will step more fully into the life that you were designed to live, not from a place of compulsion, but from a place of a heart that says, that's where I want to go. And that's the beauty of accepting forgiveness rather than having to perform your way into it. So thank you for being on the show, Danny. Thank you to our listeners for listening and for putting up with some of our stories too. And until next time, you guys keep on keeping on.
Thanks, guys. See ya.